Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. One of the reasons why I take a look at the deliveries going on at Giga Texas is it can tell you a lot that's going on inside that we can't otherwise see. And this is a classic example. Now this is from my 10 May video. You can go back and take a look at that. But I noticed this crate that had been delivered, and here's two more images to kind of give you an idea where on the factory these were delivered. This is the southwest corner near that temporary loading platform, and it's being loaded inside the general assembly section of the factory that has been under construction for some time. And looking closely at the crate, we can see it was marked by this logo. It's for the Trumpf company, and its mission is to further develop and digitally connect production technology, making manufacturing and its upstream and downstream processes more efficient, and it helps pave the way for smart factory and implement high-tech processes and on industrial electronics. Now this company is celebrating its 100th year, and it is located, the headquarters in Germany, but here in the United States it has the Americas headquarters in New Hampshire, and as you can see, several other locations in the United States and also in Mexico, which is very interesting for the Giga Mexico. Now, for Cybertruck fans, this is very important and something that you really need to pay attention to for this discussion. So let's dive a little bit deeper and explain why this is so important for the Cybertruck. Now, most of you may know that the AIDA 9,000-ton Gigapress makes the castings, as you can see in the upper image, for the Cybertruck. We also know that the AIDA stamping presses that we've been seeing assembled in Stamping 2 makes parts for the box welded inner structure. However, that leaves the stainless steel outer panels and structure. So what makes those? So let's look at the Trumpf company and see what products that they do provide. There will be many links at the bottom of the screen, also in the video description, for a lot more detail than we'll go into today. So I would recommend you take a look at those links. But what the company provides is 2 and 3D laser cutting machines, laser welding machines, tube cutting machines, punching machines, additive processing, and also bending machines on an industrial scale. And this is what's very important for Cybertruck because, as you know, it uses stainless steel outer shell skin, and those need to have precision bending of the metal, and it's difficult to do on regular machines. And as you can see here with this information on their bending machines, they use a true bend machine to produce simple and complex parts in any format precisely and cost effectively. They also offer 2 different kinds of bending machines. One is die bending, and this is the sheet metal is bent through a controlled downward movement of the press beam. And you can see an example of that in the image to the left. The other type that they can use is something called the panel bending, and this panel bending is ideally suited to complex bending applications with radius bends, short sides, and or narrow profiles. And this is exactly what is needed for the outer shell for the Cybertruck. Let's look at a few brief examples of the types of bending machines that this company provides and what may be here at Giga Texas. This is the TrueBend 1000 series, and it's capable of doing many common bending tasks with reliable accuracy. They have decades of experience with this type of machinery. It is characterized by high process accuracy. It also has long machine life, and that is important for making so many Cybertrucks, and it maximizes safety, and it's simple to operate due to numerous automatic options. There are other complementary parts to this bending machine. As you can see here, this is the TrueBend 8000 series, and there's enough space for 85 meters of tool on average. Larger tools are possible depending on the size of parts, and this is an example of one set up for 60 meters of tool. They also have a lot of different sensory tools, and they work with the tried and tested ACB measuring principle. The measurements are carried out directly with the processor zone by sensor disks, and also they have adapters available in case of U-bends and other types of bending that is required for the metal of choice. So there you have it, some interesting deliveries and some information about what is in those crates and what is going on here at Giga Texas and the importance to the production line and the assembly process for the Cybertruck. I hope that you found this information and discussion insightful and helpful and helps put into context what we're seeing at Giga Texas. As always, thank you very much for watching. Now let's get in the drone and see what's going on at Giga Texas today. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Start off here on the east side over this clearing, and you can see the mist and the rain that's in the area. It'll clear up during the flight, but then it's forecast to come back, so that's why I flew early today. But as we continue to pivot back towards the main factory, you can see the work on this clearing continues. The grade is very close to being at its final altitude, and then we'll see some more of that gravel mix put on there. As we come over towards the testing and calibration lot, you can see quite a bit of activity. Lots of Model Ys. There's some overflow on the left-hand side of the screen, just near that test track, as you can see. And quite a bit of vehicles in this particular parking lot. It is almost to the point where it is overflowing. But we're going to continue back towards the main building and take a look at this east side. You can see all the receiving docks, quite a bit of the lights flashing. They are all in operation now. And as we continue to fly towards the south, I'll zoom in just a little and show you some more of these receiving docks. Also, that very large door next to that trailer and those chutes, that used to be where the end of line was, but as we talked in the previous video, that has now been changed to the west side. As we continue to fly south along the east side of stamping, you can see these two open doors on the right. That's where a lot of the scraps are put into bins and then recycled. And then here we can see next to that open door, the last of the AIDA blue wrapped components, those very large ones, have been now moved into Stamping 2. Unfortunately, we will be able to take a look inside Stamping 2 in a few minutes. But as we are on this southeast corner of stamping, we can see the two large cranes. That's part of the continuous flight auger pier system. And also, as we continue to fly towards the south side of the Cyber Pond, I'll show you this graded area that is being prepared right now. This is what I believe is going to be the continued work to expand River Road from underneath the South Bridge along this entire section of the site. As I turn back towards the main building, you can see the geopier work on the left. You can see that continuous flight auger system underway here next to the southeast corner of stamping. Again, the rebar cages down at the bottom right, and it looks like they are preparing to, or in the process of drilling yet another one of those deep piles. As we are able to take advantage of some of the lighting and also the clear flight space in this section, I'm going to bring the drone down low and try to get a good view inside Stamping 2, particularly on this east bay where we know that the AIDA stamping presses have been installed in the past, and the last of those components that we talked about have been moved inside. This is a really good view. You can tell that most of the ground slab has been completed. You can actually see one of the smaller isolation foundations on the left, a lot more of the vehicles inside, and you can actually see, it's hard with the lighting, but you can see some of the components that have been moved inside and being prepared for installation as well. Now, all of this side within about 2 months ago was just dirt on this south end, so that's a lot of progress going on inside. You can see the concrete truck moving on the west bay going inside. That just shows that there's even more concrete work going on, at least on that side of Stamping 2. As we turn around and look more at those geopiers, which seem to be idle today, we'll continue towards the west, and we'll take a look at some of the work here next to this trailer where the rebar cages are being constructed. Again, that's for the continuous flight auger piles, and you can see quite a bit of them have been made and are stockpiled right now waiting for installation a little later. Let's continue over towards the South Bridge over River Road and the horizontal drilling operation, and it looks like most of it is completed, although we haven't seen them pull that HDPE pipe through the bore underneath the Colorado River yet. I'll pan the drone across the west side over the highway just so you can get an appreciation of the West Warehouse and Wheels, that large clearing with more of the gravel, and how some of this side of the property looks today. Because of the rains, I'm going to avoid that section, and we're going to concentrate more on the main construction site today. So as we proceed back to the north, we're going to fly over some of these rebar staged parts, and also some parts for the cranes for that continuous fly auger system, and then over this black capped groundwater well. And we're going to approach the temporary platform, and we see quite a bit of activity with movement of the equipment, these green man lifts up on top of the platform. We can see some more of those blue and black top crates. We can also see some very interesting duct work, and I think these white and black items are part of platforms, but I'm not 100% sure. And we can also see this very interesting delivery, and it looks like it may be part of a chiller unit based on the name on that part. But as we continue to fly towards the north over these receiving docks with all of the trailers, we'll approach up towards the main entrance, and the thing that you'll notice is that almost all of the plastic has been removed from the windows now. All of the stain work has been completed well past the main entrance, and the main entrance itself is getting quite a bit of work today as they prepare for Shareholders Day coming up next week. On the left here, this clearing and landscaping section shows that all of that gravel has been replaced, and it was all moved away for some work on my previous video. We also see most of the plywood that was protecting this trapezoidal section has been removed, and it looks like they are continuing to do some preparation work on those steel parts of that architectural feature of this main entrance, and they're still preparing to put that stainless steel cladding on it, but it looks like they may be doing some more test fitting or installing some more parts that are needed to affix those cladding. But as we take a look at the north side, you can see some more of the plants on the ground, more of the landscaping, and just working in and around where they put all that new concrete in as well. As we fly over the west end of line, we can see that the work by the Naquag crews continues here with pressure washing the walls. This is what they do to prepare for that white stain, and you can see how much farther to the north they are on progressing with this side of the building. So let's continue to fly up towards the north. We'll fly over the northwest corner, the ducts and the enclosures, and then we'll prepare to take a look at what's activity going on the north side of the building. Looks like there's some deliveries here of some sort of, I think maybe HVAC ducting from what you can tell there on the truck, and they're loading it into this bin, and then the crane will be lifting it up onto the third or the fourth floor. I wasn't sure exactly which of those platforms it was headed to. It looks like the third floor. The black and yellow ramps here are to unload trucks, as we talked about in the previous video. And then here on the northeast corner, we see quite a bit more of the castings and the conduit, and also 3 Model Y bodies. I think all of this here is most likely going to be recycled. Why, I'm not sure. It does look like a large number of castings, but this is something that we continue to see on a daily basis. See the conduit work going on this widened berm on the left, and some of the concrete vaults being installed as well. And of course, that plastic sheeting is to prepare that area to prevent any of the erosion because of the rains that we're expecting in the next several days. There's a good high altitude view of the castings that have been arranged on the east side of the building. So let's prepare to fly over this north parking lot across Tesla Road and take a look at the activity at the Megapack site. It would appear that most of the work on this south side is completed. So let's fly up towards this fenced section where there is plenty of materials, some concrete parts on the left as well. And as we fly over these trailers, the activity is showing the concrete vaults being installed. This is where the conduit will go through, and it provides an access point for maintenance at some point in the future. We also can tell that the pump truck is putting concrete around these conduits in the two parallel trenches, and this indicates that at least the conduit installation on this side is nearly completed, and that concrete will have a red tone to it that will tell future crews, if they're digging in that area, that there's electrical conduit. On the Megapack site, on the left trenches, you see that most of the work here has been completed, and they've filled the trench back in up to about this point. We can see the smaller trench on the left with large conduit, and then the trench on the right has conduit laid out so that they can install at some point in the future. This is a great sign that they're really moving along quickly. Here on the north, these screw type piers, you can actually see one in the middle of the screen next to those workers. That is pressed and screwed down into the ground, and that makes a mounting point. And speaking of which, you can see one of the crew there laying on their side. They are welding on the top mounts to those poles that have been put into the ground. In fact, you can see one laying on the ground next to that red and white device that pushes them into the ground. So I'll bring the drone up higher, give you a good overall view of the activity there at the Megapack. And a lot of activity, and they're really moving pretty quickly. And then we'll fly over the power lines and drop back down and take a look at the electrical switch yard, where we see more of the gravel mix being delivered and moved inside to the main grade, and that will continue to be spread around that site. Once that is completed, that will be one more milestone that's needed before they can energize the electrical systems on the switchyard. Also, near these two large transformers, it looks like there's some piles being driven into the ground just to the south of this fence line. And or at least they're being drilled and put into the ground. And I will give you a different view. This gives you a good idea of how it looks now. And as we've talked about, I expect to see a second fence line installed once this work is done towards the edge of this site. As we turn back to the south and fly over these trailers and the parking lot, there's a few new things that I would like to point out. First, on the north side of Tesla Road, there's more of the excavation work that is both installing the HDPE pipe, but also preparing for the conduit that is extending over to the battery cathode complex. Also, on this part of the east parking lot, we see crews working to spread what I believe is either some dirt or maybe some mulch. I think this is part of a landscaping effort. It may also be in relation to the shareholders meeting coming up next week. As we cross back over Tesla Road, this will be a good view of the trench work that is underway on both sides of this auxiliary road. This is where that conduit is extending. As you can tell here, it's getting that red concrete mix on top of some of the conduit. The concrete vaults have been installed, and we can also just get an appreciation for how far the conduit is extending up towards the two main buildings of this complex. Also on the ground in various sections, there's more of the concrete vaults and the underground conduits extending over to the right of the screen. Some more deliveries on this south end of the die shop and those white containers, and next to that gray shipping container, and also work on the roof section. And most of the wall panels on the south end have been completed now. This is a good view looking down at more of that conduit and those vaults. The conduit extends to the north through this alleyway up to these other vaults where you can see on the ground as well. Some of the progress going on at this chiller or cooler system includes the installation of the Evapco fans units and also the base units. In my previous video, I showed you a time lapse of installing one of the base units. You can see now that all 8 of the main components, 4 bases, 4 fan units, have been installed. And I'll bring the drone up to a higher altitude and give you a bird's eye view straight down so you can get an appreciation for how the installation is underway now. And with those fan units, that really brings them closer than they've been up to this point to getting this operational. Now this other section that's kind of open on that roof is something I'm monitoring to figure out what they're going to be installing in that section. It looks like there will be some sort of equipment, but I'm not really sure what that is at this time. But as I bring the drone down, this gives you a good view inside the west of this chiller unit and also that nitrogen generator system with those tanks and vaporizers on the right. On the ground here, they are continuing to install those blue water pipes with the T's that one goes into the die shop and the other right in the middle of the screen moves towards the north. And it'll be something to continue to monitor to see where that is connected. But it looks like they're making great progress on that trenching and water pipe installation. The plastic sheeting has been removed where this deep foundation is located. And with this, we are able to see inside, and one of the things that we can tell is that the perimeter grade beam has been completed. Most of the ground slab has been poured with concrete now, and it's generally level with or slightly below the edge of the deep foundation, and you can tell the deep foundation what its configuration is with that zoom in. So a lot of continued progress in this section. We may see wall panels being installed here very soon now with that work completed. And speaking of which, you can tell just how much of the wall panels have been installed on this side of the building. I believe we're seeing a window line where the wall panels have not been installed on that 4th level. And then several months ago, I showed you a rendering of the die shop, and it did have a window line, and I believe that's what we are seeing right now. But it'll be something I'll continue to monitor. The roof installation of the insulation and weatherproof membranes continues. It's about 80% completed on this section of the building now. I wanted to come up to the north on the west side just to give you a view of the berm removal and how much wider this section of this construction site has become. And it looks like they're continuing to remove more and more of this berm, and they've more than doubled the width that's available now at a constant grade on this side of the structure. The temporary structure with materials still remains, but more and more are being moved inside. We can see more of those concrete vaults and the tanks that are located just to the north of the main building. And a good view overall of the west side and how wide it is becoming with that berm removal. Flying over the cell test lab small steel structure on the left, we can also see more of the crane parts on those flatbed trucks getting ready for movement. And where the silver truck is located next to the base of the wall, that's where all the Evapco parts are, so they are now completely gone, opening up that section of the east side material staging. See more of the work going on here with grade on the far east side. And as I get closer to this trapezoidal shaped concrete apron, We can tell that that 7-story tall assembled platform with all the equipment have now been moved inside. They used a series of rails and rollers and also some hydraulic jacks to push that inside and roll it to its final location. So quite interesting to see how that was achieved. And it's also interesting that they chose to do the assembly on the outside and then move it into the building. But now that that is installed, I would expect to see that opening closed up in the very near future. Pulling away towards the east side to give an overall view of how this part of the construction site looks today. The Martin Marietta maintenance shop still remains with all of those concrete trucks, and I'm still monitoring to see when that will eventually be moved. On the bottom of the screen, you can see this large pile of debris. This is where they break down many of the crates and containers that bring in materials and supplies, and then that is all broken down and then sent off for recycling. As we fly over the main contractor trailers and some of the material staging with the workshop, I'll show you this clearing. Once again, it looks like it's being used for the moment for some material staging. Here it looks like they're using old wall panels for bases, and then they will stack materials on top. So it's interesting to see what they're using this for, at least in the short term. Before we end the video, I wanted to show you the activity in the new car staging and transportation lot. Next to these tents, there's quite a bit of Model Ys. I think this is the last checkout before they put them into the staging location and the trucks pick them up. And as you can tell, there's quite a bit of trucks that are already here on site, and they are rapidly picking up the vehicles and moving them up to the railhead and other staging locations around Austin. I think the strategy is it's better to have them away from the site than to have a lot just sitting here parked. And I think that's a great strategy that Tesla is employing. So as we get ready for the weekend, I'll do this big flyaway, give you a good view of the entire site. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you appreciated the information that we discussed in the intro and throughout the video. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Take care.